My name's Carl Katafiasz, and I'm the head of adult services here at the Civic Center Library. You know, each and every summer, public libraries can't wait for an event to occur. And that event is summer reading. Each year, the summer reading has a particular theme. And so the libraries dedicate themselves to try to provide programs for kids, for tweens, for teens, for adults that somehow reflect the theme of the summer reading program. Now, this year's theme was Imagine Your Story. And just think about that. When I saw Imagine Your Story, one thing popped into my head, and that was genealogy. Genealogy. Let me just ask you something hypothetically. Imagine your story if, let's say, your parents, one of your grandparents, one of your great-grandparents happened to settle in a different city, maybe settle in a different state. Imagine your story. Or another hypothetical. How about imagine your story if your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, imagine your story if they would have married somebody else. Well, probably your story would be a lot different than what it is today. You know, when we take a look at your story and put it in regards to genealogy, when we start a genealogy, that line right there is you. That first line. And we work our way backwards. So we have your parents, and your grandparents, and your great-grandparents, and then your great-great-grandparents. So, on that chart alone, there are 30 individuals whose story made up your story. And so what this series will be doing is to simply encourage you, if you haven't tried genealogy, or maybe you even do genealogy, but to go and discover what new and fun things might await for you in your family's story. A tree. A tree is probably one of the most precise symbols of genealogy. You yourself are the trunk, and your ancestors stem from you. As you continue out, you're finding new ancestors and new information. All of this helping you to determine your story. Now, genealogy, you can do it by yourself. You can do it with your parents. You can do it with your siblings, with your grandparents. You can do it with your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. Family reunions are a great place to find out what was happening with a family. And the most important thing is, genealogy is for everybody of all ages. Keep that in mind as we continue through this presentation. Another thing about genealogy is you don't have to do it right away at one sitting. You don't have to start and then complete it by sitting at your desk until you're done. Genealogy takes time. And trust me, that's okay. I've been doing my family's genealogy between 25 and 30 years now, and I'm still discovering fascinating things that I've never known before. Another thing to remember all throughout your research, first and foremost, genealogy should always be a fun experience. Nothing tedious, nothing like homework, but should be a fun experience for you and for discovering. You know, genealogies have been around for centuries. In fact, you can even find genealogies in the Bible. There's genealogies mentioned in the Old Testament and genealogies mentioned in the New Testament. But as time went on, genealogies and peerage and lineage was something that was more reserved for the upper class, for the landowners, for the land barons. And the peasants, well, not so much. Okay. But in time, there were those that took up the challenge and started researching their family history. And they started writing things down and documenting and putting things down on paper in the hope that possibly future generations would pick up that cloak, pick up that book, and continue the genealogy on. So there was interest in time, but the interest just blossomed in the late 1970s. And that was, I say, responsible for the publication and TV production of that particular book, Roots by Alex Haley. When people saw that in the mid to late 70s, it almost lit a fire under their genealogical inquiries. They wanted to know about their family. Probably not to trace it all the way back as far as Alex Haley did, but the interest was planted. You know, in fact, when I was working on my master's degree at the University of Toledo, there was a summer course that I took in a master's program that dealt with genealogy. So maybe that's where my seed was planted way back then, and here we are at 2020. And then came the 1980s. Well, that decade changed genealogy forever. It used to be that prior to this time, for myself or anyone else to conduct genealogy, you had to go to a library, a museum, a courthouse, an archives. But now, the 1980s, something happened, and things became available to change where you are going to conduct your research. For example, the 1980s was the birth of the personal computer. And I'm sure some of you even remember some of these with the green letters that are going to be on the screen there. And then, in order to assist people doing their genealogy, came software specific for genealogy. That now you could type in information into your computer and store it there. And the information came on something called floppies. Okay? Now, some of you who are as old as I am remember these things. Some of you young people, well, Go ask your parents and grandparents, and they might be able to fill you in on the technological advancements of the 80s. And now you have all that information, but now where? You want to print this out. So along came a dot matrix printer. Just ask the old people in your family. They'll let you know what a dot matrix is. So your genealogical workstation in the 1980s could look something like this, whether it be at home, maybe it was in a library, maybe it was in a museum. But the seed was planted, and now it was just ready to take off. But you know something? Before we even get into the technological aspects, and before we start talking about websites and downloading and things like this, there's an old adage in genealogy that you don't necessarily start your research way in the past. You start your research with yourself. Now, your home will become your base of operations in this segment of your genealogical research. And what better place to start than right at home? Okay? So your first goal, or maybe my first suggestion to you, would be now is the time to reach out to your parents, to your siblings, to your grandparents, to aunts, uncles, cousins. You can pick up your cell phone, give them a call. You can shoot them an email. Maybe even you want to do FaceTime. Maybe you can even Skype with them. But the most important aspect here is to begin that conversation. I do quite a bit of genealogy here at the library, and I do presentations on and off here at the library and to the Western Wayne County Genealogical Society. And I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and I to them, and a lot of times a genealogist's wish is, I wish I could have talked to my grandmother before she died. I wish I could have sat and talked to Aunt Sophie before she passed away, or my Uncle Louis, or whoever. Because it's these individuals that at their passing, the information they take with them, you'll never find in a document, you'll never find in a newspaper, you'll never find in a vital record. It's these kind of family story kind of information that only communication can impart in your genealogy. Ask questions, because that's the only way you're going to learn. But do me a favor. When you're asking these questions, please just have maybe pen or pencil and paper at hand. And as you're carrying on these conversations, or jot down little pieces of information and notes. Trust me. You're going to think that, oh, I'll be able to remember what Aunt Doris and I have been talking about. And after the end of a 30-minute conversation, when you go down and start trying to input the information or simply remember the information that you talked about, trust me, some of it is going to be gone. So take a little bit of time and jot down some notes. But we're going to stay at home yet. You're not ready to go out and get that information yet. Because a home can be a veritable treasure trove of information. Maybe it's at your parents' house, or maybe your grandparents' house, or maybe an aunt, an uncle, a cousin. But there could be information, pertinent information, that you could utilize in order to make your genealogical research that much easier. For example, maybe there's a family Bible. You know, a lot of times, well, prior to the pandemic, we would receive a lot of donations. And I can't tell you how many times we would have Bibles donated for the book sale here at the library with genealogical information written inside the Bible. And I always wonder, do they actually know what they're getting rid of? So always take a quick peek at what's inside that Bible. Newspaper clippings, and they can be found anywhere. They can be found inside the Bible. And newspaper clippings can be any kind of story. It could be a sports story. It could be a baby announcement. It could be even the unfortunate accident where one of your family members, cousins you might not have known of way back when, tragically perished in a car accident. But newspaper articles can provide you so much information. Funeral cards. Take a look on the back of the funeral card. Generally, you have the date of death. You have the date of interment. You have the cemetery. And while you're looking for the funeral cards, is there a funeral book nearby? Because if there is, a lot of times you're going to find ancestors for the dearly departed in that funeral book along with their addresses. And addresses not necessarily for you to write to in these present times, but addresses that are going to assist you once you find records back from that time period of your ancestors' passing. Vital records, birth records, death records, marriage records, wills, tax records. All of this information could possibly be there and help you out. Old purses and wallets. Listen, don't just toss them away. Hey, who knows? You open a purse, open up a wallet, you might find a little bit of extra cash to take your significant other out to dinner. But you never know what you're going to find. When I was going through some old stuff that my mother happened to have after my dad's passing, I came across an old wallet. And inside the wallet, I happened to find his driver's license. Now, a driver's license really isn't going to give me quite a bit of genealogical information, but it gave me two things. It gave me a picture of my dad, and it gave me a replica of his handwriting. Now, some of you might say, okay, that's nice and everything, but my sons never met my dad. So if I can give them the opportunity to put a face to their grandfather, well, let me just say, I'm not going to pass up that opportunity. Old letters. Oh my gosh, old letters are a gold mine. Because you never know what you're going to expect in these handwritten notes. And trust me, they're going to be handwritten. And, sometimes not everybody has the greatest handwriting, so be prepared for that. But the old letters can provide you with, again, a wealth of information. They can talk about past family members, what's going on. Maybe they're even going to mention a farm in a particular county, giving you a clue to research that particular county. Or maybe your father, your mother, your grandparents, great-grandparents, did they serve in the war? Maybe you would come across love letters that they would send between one another. What a find. Super great information. School records, where they went to school, not necessarily the grades, possible, the classmates, militaria, discharge papers. Did your ancestor receive any medals? And if so, for what? Any kind of information about that particular service that they were in. Vietnam, Korea, World War II, World War I, Spanish American, Civil War. Maybe you're lucky enough to trace it all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And if you are, a lot of people would give their two front teeth to go back that far. And I will bet that almost each and every one of you have a box of old photos or photo slides, and now what are you going to do with them? Well, you know something? That's going to be a topic of a future presentation here. So I'm going to let that fish hook just dangle for a while and maybe bait you back to attend that presentation later on. So you've done your homework and you've gone through, and now you have this collection of information. This sort of looks like my basement. But now what are you going to do with it? All this stuff. The key word for you is to organize that information. And the information that you collect, along with its organization, is personal to you. Organize it the way you want it to be organized. For example, if you want to pick up 3-ring binders, pick up 3-ring binders. If you want to have file envelopes, have file envelopes, but make it so that you can organize this information and go back to that information in an easy way for you. Okay? So make it personal for you. Now, in all of your research, there are going to be 2 forms that you will not be able to live without. And the first of these is called a pedigree chart. And you probably saw this one on the first slide. Well, we're just going to take a little more in-depth look at this. Well, the purpose of your pedigree chart is to document the direct ancestral line to that person here in number 1. And when you take a look at the information, it's pretty much just straightforward information. The name of the individual, their date they're born, where they're born, when they're married, where they are married, the date of their death, and where they died. Okay? This chart available in a lot of places. And you can take a look and find it at the michigan.gov or Ancestry Library Edition, which, till the end of September, is still available to access remotely via a library card. And, one other thing, always use pencil when you're dealing with these forms, because, trust me, you're going to come across information that is going to be conflicting. And you're going to be erasing and putting in new information until you come to the conclusive date or information on that particular chart. So again, use pencils, please. The next, this is called a family group chart. Now, just as it says, it's a family group. It's for a specific family. Again, information pretty much straightforward. You have the father, you have the mother, and then you have a listing of the children. Now, basically it's going to be the same information asked. Date of birth, where? Married, where? Date of death, where did they die? Where are they buried? What cemetery are they in? They'll also have a familial connection, asking you for the parents of both the husband and the wife. Now, a lot of these forms, again, basically the same information. On this one, you can see where it's only got room for 9 kids. Some people may say, well, my grandmother or my great-grandmother had 15. Where do I put them? Not a problem. Make 2 copies of the paper, cut that box off, tape it to the back side. Now you have room for 18 kids. Okay? So, anything can be adapted to. Each and every child, then within this family, they too are going to get their family group sheet, because once they marry, they become a family. And in all honesty, I even have family group sheets for the children who pass away as infants, who never get married, because they too have their own story in a family history, and they deserve one of those sheets as well. And again, this chart can be downloaded from the Michigan.gov site or found on Ancestry Library Edition, just like the other one. Now, in future upcoming episodes, I'm going to be talking of a variety of topics, and I hope that you'll come back to see what's going on genealogical-wise. So we'll be talking about genealogical websites. We're going to be talking about family search. We'll talk about Find a Grave or Billion Graves. We're going to talk Heritage Quest, GenWebs, Cindy's List, Ancestry Library Edition. We're going to talk about what's available here at the Livonia Civic Center Library. We're going to talk about the federal census. You know, it just so happens that census is actually taking place this year, and that particular document is going to be one of the foremost documents you're going to use in your research. So let's come back for that one. This is a presentation that's a lot of fun for me to do. I nicknamed it Surname Scrabble. With a name like Katafiasz, let me tell you, right now, I have discovered 61 versions of my last name in the past years of my research. And the number keeps growing. And let me tell you, the spellings are off the chart. So if you have a Slavic name or a German name, Polish name, Russian name, something like that, trust me, you're going to find a lot of different spellings. Remember, I mentioned those old photographs and those photo slides. We're going to have a presentation on that. And then another one that I like to talk about, and that is, genealogy potholes, or brick walls, as some genealogists say. Because you're going to be looking for something and you're going to run into a problem or run into this brick wall that you can't get around. Well, we're going to try to help you with that. Whether it be to find a way around it, or possibly maybe suggest, hey, if you're in Livonia, contact the Western Wayne County Genealogical Society, and they'd be able to help you out without a problem. So we will have upcoming episodes. I'm hoping for around maybe a dozen. So again, I'm hoping that you come back and tune in. So, in closing, right now, we may already know from what part of the world our ancestors come from, and that's fine and dandy. But you know, while everybody's genealogical journey shares a similar course for seeking information on our families, direct, indirect families. Some are going to take different roads than others. Some of them are going to find information with relative ease. And then there's going to be some of us whose journey is going to go down a winding path. But you know something? The best thing about genealogy is the journey. It's one's personal and family expedition into new discoveries that you might have never known existed. So I want to thank you for stopping by, and thank you for watching. So I'm going to send you off on your genealogical adventure. Again, thanks for watching. You know, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to help you out in your genealogical research. So feel free to email me at that address, ckatafiasz@LivoniaPublicLibrary.org. And again, I'll try to help you out as best I can. So until our next presentation, good luck, good searching, and please stay healthy. See you again soon. Bye-bye.